This year has been pretty big for the Fate franchise, with the second Heaven's Feel movie releasing and Grand Order getting yet another adaptation. This little anime called Lord El-Melloi has seemed to get lost in the talk about these other two series. But here today, I'm going to review Lord El-Melloi and talk about how Troika was able to bring to life a new canon series to the Fate franchise. And consider liking this video and commenting your thoughts on the series. Every like and comment is better than straight up giving me $100. Which is insane, but absolutely true. So thank you for the support, and let's review Lord El-Melloi. Who done it, how done it, and why done it are Waver Velvet's favorite words in this mystery thriller, and one day his goal is to reconnect with Iskandar after the events of Fate Zero. Gray, a descendant of Arturia Pendragon, or, in other words, Sabasan, is his apprentice who will accompany him. Along with many other fan favorites like Luvia and Kairi, Lord El-Melloi will explore the world of Fate much more than its predecessors ever could. This is Lord El-Melloi's second Case Files. From the creators of the excellent Bloom Into You and recreators, Troika is back to animate this new canon series in the Fate universe. It's directed by Makoto Kato, who directed that excellent Bloom Into You adaptation, and has also directed Beautiful Bones, Sakurako's Investigation. The series airs on Crunchyroll, Verve, and Funimation Now, and is 13 episodes in length. I talked about this in my previous El-Melloi video, but the main strength of this series isn't that we get more Fate fan service in the way of characters like Lufia and Waver returning to the screen, but actually the world of Fate. After watching Fate Zero and most of the Fate Stay Nights, I've always wondered what the world of Fate is really like normally outside of a Holy Grail war. And while we have the Grand Order expansions and such, those really aren't canon, and even if they were, they aren't a great descriptor of what the Fate world is really like. Well, Melloi pretty much is all about the world of Fate outside of, Fate. And we get a hell of a lot of development in that regard. This series really focuses in on something Garden of Sinners and Tsukihime really focuses on, and that's the Mystic Eyes. In this series, we will learn about all kinds of different Mystic Eyes, their uses, and how they're generally regarded in the world of Fate. As a fan of Tsukihime, this is a great way to tie in the deeper lore that hardcore fans of Fate would know and pop for, but also something new to newer fans who may have not seen Garden of Sinners or Tsukihime. And that's great for them because they explain it rather well in this series. I think the best part of this series is how the anime explains the mechanics of this world. It really comes off as an anime version of Harry Potter even at times, but with that Fate twist on it that makes it Fate so highly regarded. I love exploring the different kinds of magic abilities, gadgets, and other things of that nature. Really, this series, to me at least, wasn't much of a murder mystery, Sherlock Holmes kind of show. That stuff was just there to explain the massive world full of interesting and fascinating things in the Fate universe. Which sort of brings me to a letdown. The mysteries aren't that interesting until you get to the Rel Zeppelin portion, and even then, it's not something I was always the most invested in. This is also where I hear many of the complaints about the show, and also where I kind of agree on some level with them. The show is just kind of slow and thorough, and in turn, just a tad bit boring, but I think this is more of an acquired taste thing, rather than a this anime is bad kind of thing. It's just the nature of what this anime is. It's about solving cases in a very thorough way to then explain a bunch of the mechanics in the Fate world. Now, don't get me wrong, all of these episodes are highly entertaining, and all of that, but many of the episodes, I would say, are about as slow as the slowest episodes of Fate Zero for reference, but maybe even a bit faster paced than that. Not by much, admittedly. Of course, we have to talk about the characters in a Fate anime. Of course. It's the best part of every Fate. Waver Velvet is back, and I must say he is the best character in this anime for sure. He's simply fantastic. He's matured from when he was in the last Holy Grail War, and since then he's become much more adultish and brutish looking as a result. But under that facade, Waver is the same person he's always been. He is short-tempered and is often annoyed and flustered by Reynes. He's much like the Waver we came to like in Fate Zero, but now grown up and more matured. He's the best character in this anime because this anime was kinda built around him, so it makes sense. Next up is Gray, Waver's apprentice and descendant of Arturia Pendragon. In this anime, Gray is portrayed as being sort of shy and introverted, and having a weird pseudo-crush on her Shisho, Waver. And while that should send most of you into a cringe fit, it's portrayed in a rather sweet and innocent manner. Not anything creepy or disgusting here, but her best moments are when she uses her giant scythe, which just looks badass. She's honestly a character in the beginning I didn't care much for, but by the end I ended up liking where her character went, even though she really isn't that important of a character overall. And of course, we have returning characters like Luvia, who has a really great Luvia moment that fans of her like myself will really enjoy. In this anime, we get to see a lot from her, more so than we have ever before, barring Fate Khalid, which, thinking about it, this is the first time we've seen this much of her in a canon Fate series. Then we have the nice addition to the cast in Olga Marie. Most fans will notice her from the Fate Grand Order series, but I feel this is the best she's ever been in a Fate anime or property. But there are just a lot of characters I care nothing for at all. Characters like Yvette, which feels like she shoehorned into this show because they just had to have that pixie, bright and pink, annoying anime girl who's very suggestive in the way she talks and is generally a nuisance. The character did nothing for the series and served to only derail some scenes that she was in. Besides Yvette and some other minor characters I didn't like, El-Melloi has a pretty awesome cast, and they do them justice pretty well, I would say. If you're a fan of Fate, this will be a treat because there are so many characters that we just don't get to normally see enough, like Luvia. Troika has been a studio that really has impressed me lately. I always like to bring up Bloom Into You because it was a rare example of me disliking a manga and liking its adaptation because of how good the anime was. This is all thanks to the talented people at Troika, which made that anime as good as it was. Now switching over to El-Melloi, and I'm for the most part very impressed by how well they adapted to the Fate style. Of course, they were the studio behind Recreators, which is very much like a, shall we say, fanfic version of Fate, but still, that anime retains a lot of its own identity. Here, Troika just absolutely nail the background and character designs. Gray, Waver, Reynes, Luvia, Olga, they're all beautiful looking designs that just fit in this universe so well. Not only does it retain the charm of Fate Zero's character designs and also some of the motifs of Ufotable, but they add their own spin to it, which makes it look just so Troika. Another great example of this series is the backgrounds, which are some of the most unique I've seen in Fate ever, honestly. And that's because it's less of Fuyuki City and more of London and the scenery we see on the Rail Zeppelin. The architecture of the city is beautiful. Interiors in Luvia's store look immaculate, and the vast hills and turbulent weather of the ley lines are all just so damn good looking. As a Fate anime, this series just feels so unique compared to pretty much every other Fate anime in any of the series I've seen so far. As for animation, the anime really doesn't lay into the traditional big anime shonen fights of the mainline series. Instead, El-Melloi is more reserved and relies on animation and lighting for moments rather than straight-up action. And don't get me wrong, the action in this anime is plenty, and it's really good, but if you were expecting UBW-styled fights, then think again. This show is about solving mysteries, and thus the animation is more based around character expressions, subtle animation, and the use of magical objects and gadgets. Like in one episode, when Reynes uses a bounded field, it looked very impressive. Another example is the last episode of the massive 6-episode Rail Zeppelin arc with how great their facial animations looked, which, in general, I would say facial expressions in this anime are top-notch. But if you've seen my review for Bloom Into You, that shouldn't be much of a surprise. Troika really are good when it comes to making their characters expressive, but not overly so. Even though I may hate Yvette and what she stands for, I can't deny how well she was animated. Same goes for Luvia and Waver for how awesome and expressive their characters are. Overall, animation is very good outside of some really mediocre CGI for some of the fights. Yuki Kajiura. What can be said that hasn't already? I've already talked at length about her works for Fate, so if you want more details in terms of how she scores and what she scores, watch my previous Fate reviews, or even better, watch my previous Lord El-Melloi videos. In this anime, it's more similar to something you'd hear in Fate Zero, which is because Waver Velvet is your MC, so it would make more sense to go from what is established in that series to this one. It's a good score. Wouldn't say it's notable outside of the opening sequence, which makes sense as I don't find this anime to be score heavy, as it's mostly dialogue heavy. But overall, good score. In closing, El-Melloi is a fantastic and worthwhile addition to the Fate series. Sometimes when you get anime like Fate Khalid and some of those Grand Order anime, it's hard to see why they justify so much time to those instead of expanding the canon universe. This is an answer to those people like myself who want more Fate anime of consequence, and El-Melloi delivers on some of those promises. And there are issues like its slow pacing and questionable character additions like Yvette. Otherwise, if you're a Fate fan and have seen Fate Zero at least, give this anime a shot. You may end up enjoying yourself quite a bit. If you haven't seen at least Fate Zero, you probably aren't even going to like this series anyways, so don't, it's not a recommendation. Yeah. This is one of the final reviews. I have 3 more reviews coming out soon for O Maidens in Your Savage Season Copcrap and Given, so give me all of your strength. I'm dying, as you can tell in this video. I seem tired because I was. So with that being said, click on some of these videos if you're not around. Make sure to give this video a comment and make sure to go to my $1 and above. See you later. Bye-bye.